Let's talk about competition. Some activities by nature are competitive. You have a scenario where one group of people are against another group of people, and someone will most likely try to turn it into a dick measuring contest. For the longest time, this was physical activities. Things like foot races, boxing, and football were things that translated well into competitive formats. Thus, the world of sports was born, and old white men who would get drunk while yelling at their local team and causing riots was born. I wish this was a joke. But the majority of sports require a lot of physical prowess. Apart from chess. Wait. Okay, cool. Apart from chess and a few other games, the majority of sports require their participants to be in top physical shape so they can practice the sacred art of running at each other. But what about you? What do you do if you have that competitive fire? Esports, baby! Esports have the complexity of standard sports without the level of physical requirement, meaning that anyone could be a pro athlete now. Yes, even you! You sat at your desk right now wearing your pajama bottoms that haven't got out of them for 4 days. Your blinds shut in the middle of the day, eating your cereal at 3 p.m. What was your last time that you got a shower? How long has it been since you washed that hoodie? Yeah, that's right. Even a piece of crap like you can be a pro competitive gamer. Just get a shower, please. All you need is a high-powered PC or a console that can run the game at least 60 FPS consistently, a low-latency monitor with 144Hz refresh rate if you're playing something like a shooter, a good keyboard and mouse that doesn't drop inputs or double-click, or your preferred controller, and about 18 to 14 hours a day to practice. Oh, and if your game doesn't have a replay system, you'll have to find a way to capture your game footage so you can review your matches later to find out what you did wrong. So that's having OBS open in the background or a capture card, and you wonder why most people aren't into competing! While the idea that little Timmy in his room playing on his dad's off-white PC from the 90s can become a pro Fortnite champion is somewhat misleading, it's still really cool that video games are now airing on TV as the same channel as pro fishing is aired on. And if you're not looking to be blessed with the ability to click on heads, you can watch people more skilled than you play the games at the highest level, and it's definitely never boring. Definitely not. Just wake me up when the team fight starts. Despite causing the majority of people to fall asleep, esports has become a massive industry with established players, leagues, organizations, all fighting to prove who's the best team in the world and make that sweet, sweet cash money. But hold on. If we go over to esportsearnings.com, we can see the top 100 total prize pools for esports, and you'll notice the apparent lack of fighting games. Street Fighter V is the game with the most prize money paid out for it in fighting games. Well, technically it's Melee, but don't let Nintendo know that. In fact, excluding platform fighters, there's only one fighting game on the list that isn't made by one of the big three developers. Street Fighter V is also the only fighting game to make it to the top 50 games. What's going on here? If you ask most people, they'd probably tell you that Street Fighter 2 was the first real competitive game due to it being head-on-head competition. You and your buddy would sit down and just beat the crap out of each other, which translated well for you and your buddy entering a tournament to beat the crap out of each other for cash money. So why did it take off like League of Legends did? That's what we're going to talk about today. So, let's talk about the FGC, its polarizing relationship with esports, and how ProjectL may change everything. Fuck, that's just the intro. So, let's lay some groundwork. Where did the FGC come from? If you're like me and was born after it became much easier to figure out people's ages from just the year that they were born, you probably don't know much about arcades or arcade culture, and neither do I. From what I can tell from the ancient tomes and stories passed down by FGC veterans, as well as Japan, who still has an arcade scene, was that the arcades were a magical place where you could go and spend 0.25 of your respected currency, and you go to play any cool game that you want on a big cabinet with really good speakers. In the arcades, though, one type of game reigned supreme. One genre was the most played, the most respected, and the most desired of them all. Of course, I'm talking about the fighting game cabinet. The beauty of fighting games is that instead of having just one stick and buttons, they had two, meaning that people would be able to stand next to each other and play the game at the same time, trying to beat each other. Now, there obviously weren't the only two-player cabinets at the arcade. Light gun games and beat-em-ups would generally have two controllers that people could play together with, but from what I know, fighting games were really the only ones where you could play against each other in real time, making them the most played for groups of friends who just wanted to talk trash and have a good time. time. Due to their popularity, more people began to play them and learn tricks and techniques in order to get better at the games. A community sprang up around the games dedicated to getting better and proving that they were the best at their game. Eventually, however, the arcade scene in the West began to die, and in an effort to keep the spirit alive, people began to run tournaments off of the old cabinets. In order to mimic the feel of the arcade the best, these tournaments were open to anyone who could pay the entry fee, and the tournament organizers would generally run several different games at the same time. The scene around fighting games stayed consistent in size for a few years until the release of Street Fighter 4, where it began to explode and expand into the large community we know it as now. The main thing to take away from FGC tournaments is that they're always open tournaments, meaning that anyone can join. Please ignore the fact that we have invitationals. This mimics how things were back in the arcades, as all you would need is a bit of money to play. Sure, the entry fee is generally more than 25p, but you'll be getting more than one game even if you lose each match. The nature of open tournaments means that you get people from all different walks of life and different goals. You have those who are there to see how good they are, some of them are there to support the scene and all their friends, some of them are there to prove a point, and of course, some of them are there for a paycheck. You also have very large and clashing personalities that lead to extremely volatile and exciting sets and scenarios. With modern day FGC tournaments, they're as much about the players competing as they are the actual game. A lot of the time, people describe tournaments and players' runs as real life anime, and if you listen to people describe the situation some players find themselves in, you wouldn't be blamed for believing them. But hold on, there's people here playing a video game competitively for a cash prize and the prestige of winning a tournament. Isn't that just esports? The answer to that is yes, but no. While on paper, yes, the majority of fighting game tournaments can be seen as esports, as this is a competition based on a virtual game. If you were to watch League of Legends, MSI, and CEO back-to-back, you notice some differences. I don't know about you, Chief, but these vibes are off. At CEO specifically, each player in top 8 has their own wrestling-inspired intro. They get to pick their own music, come out with anyone they want, and have the stage to themselves for a minute or so. The stage, by the way, is straight up a wrestling ring. Apart from being an extremely unique and honestly godlike concept for a tournament, this gives players a way to express themselves and show what they're about. Plus, for spectators, they get to see some cool-ass intros and get hyped for upcoming matches. In MSI, you're pretty lucky to get an interview, and even all that feels neutered. So why does the FGC have stuff like this?
Just ask the
this is my game!
Oh, he told KBR.
And esports has stuff like this.
Dude, I was ranked higher than Cutie for like 5 months, and the one time that he's higher ranked than me, he like has to rub it in my face. But no, Cutie is boosted garbage. So.
Well, that's because their roots are very different. Esports refers to any video game played competitively for spectators to enjoy. Because of this, finding any specific route from where it started and tracking its trajectory is much harder and honestly has already been done by better people. However, according to Wikipedia, the first esports was Space War back in 1971 at Stanford University. Anyway, so Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike originated as a modern Half-Life in which 2 teams of 5 players shoot each other in the face. Tournaments for Counter-Strike have been running since 2000, with the first major being the CPL Winter Championship in 2001, the prize pot of which was an eye-watering $150,000. Ever since then, Counter-Strike has had several big tournaments with each new version of the game that has come out, with CSGO just starting to get ludicrous numbers. Like, what the fuck? I'm playing the wrong game, man. I need to learn to click on heads good. In all fairness, though, these are team-based games, so that money doesn't go directly to one individual, it goes to an organization that signed these players, and I assume they get a cut, but it might just go directly to Scrooge McDuck for all I know. The difference between these majors and a large fighting game tournament as well is that you have to qualify for this tournament or you have to be invited to them. So like, let's take the ESL League for example. ESL is an esports league in which teams can compete in order to try and get into the ESL Pro League, which has a massive prize pool. So how do you get there? Well, it's a league, so you start in open. These work like regular single elimination tournaments. You play your matches, get some points depending on how well your team did in that specific tournament, and at the end of the league, there's one final tournament where you find out which team is the best. And of course, the top gets to move into the next division. No, wait, you just get... What the fuck is ESL Premium? Okay, so there's no way for you to advance out of Open apart from being picked up by a team in the Challenger League. I think they're not really the most clear on this. But from there, you're officially in the ESL Pro Circuit. Congratulations. From here, we're starting to get to the top of competition. Now, when you can come second and you get to go to the Intermediate Circuit. Wait, that doesn't say ESL. How the fuck do you get to the ESL Pro circuit? You have to win one of these specific tournaments. Fuck me, this shit is confusing. Basically, the path isn't extremely clear. Probably because of how much the prize pot makes my eyes water. Like, bro, what? If I keep telling myself Evo got Sony money, nah, it gives me hope, you know? As you can see, the CSGO circuit mimics more like actual sports circuits than the major events of fighting games, which closely mimic how the arcades would work. While the open format is obviously better for newbies, as there's a clearer path to the top, advertisers are more reluctant to plaster all of their crap all over the streams and walls of the event, since literally anyone could be there. That's really what these numbers come down to. Advertisers. Recently, big companies have decided that, you know what, actually putting our stuff in front of these sweaty nerds is a good idea. And we started to see advertisers from all sorts of things across different events, with companies like Red Bull seemingly being on every esports broadcast somewhere. They even have their own fighting game invitational now. Red Bull was a bad choice for a company to, like, make an example out of on this, but fuck me, Red Bull really likes esports. But with companies showing more and more of their stuff at these events, suddenly the tournament organizers get a bit worried when somebody grabs the mic and yells, "This is my game!" Sure, this is harmless, but what if it was something less tame? What if they drank Red Bull and said, "This tastes like shit"? What if they took the mic and came out in defense of Hong Kong? Oh, sorry, Blizzard! Did you want me to forget about that? This is the biggest divide here. The FGC and the largest tournaments surrounding it came from the question of who is the best and a desire to keep their old arcade roots alive. Modern esports came from a place of who is the best and how much money can we make from all of this. In all fairness, that's a pretty cynical take, but honestly, it's how I feel watching most of these tournaments, especially ones run by Riot Games. Oh boy. Okay. So, Riot Games is an American-based company who work on popular esports titles like League of Legends and Valorant. Since 2009, League has been their biggest game and has grown exponentially over the course of 12 years. Being free to play and runnable on a potato, it became a popular game for college students, teenagers, and adults alike. The game has become infamous for being somewhat hella toxic, and just sitting in the loading queue can force you to contract several undiscovered diseases. Yet despite the toxicity, the game has one of the biggest payouts and viewership numbers in esports, with several leagues worldwide for players to compete in, all leading to the World's Finals at the end of the year. League of Legends is a MOBA, meaning it's needlessly complicated, and unless you play and watch it religiously, you'll have no idea what the fuck is going on. While League of Legends isn't the biggest MOBA on the market, you wouldn't be mistaken for thinking it is with just how everywhere it is. Riot dumped an insane amount of money into the game, but just looking at a match of the thing, you wouldn't believe it when I said that. But this game has so much shit in it. Did you know that the game has not one, not two, but 3 full musical bands, all with their own songs, 2 of which have entire albums and different skin lines, which all cost a lot of fucking money? The music isn't even that bad. That's the worst thing. For real, Pentakill slaps, and I hate admitting it, but I had a phase where I just listened to KDA Popstar on repeat non-stop. Just writing this made me want to listen to it again. Like, it's good! But easily, the biggest place they dump all of their money is in the esports scene. Massive stages, huge production, with extremely talented analysts and commentators, hundreds of people working behind the scenes to make sure that everything looks and runs smoothly, not to mention all the effects and transitions they have going on. It's honestly like looking at a real sporting event broadcast, and I fucking hate watching them. Now, in all fairness, part of this is because I don't really like League of Legends. I haven't played the game in 2 years, and this grass feels really nice, so I'm not going to go back to it. But just from a spectator's view, the broadcast feels neutered? Like, this isn't how people talk to each other in a game.
Honestly, it's a fluke. They're not the better team, not even close. If they were the better team, they wouldn't have been down 4 dragons and 11k at the end of the game, but we messed up. We mess up one team fight and we lose the game, so they can have the set, but if we meet them in playoffs, I'm sure we'll beat them.
Fun fact, this guy has been called the most toxic guy in League of Legends esports. This is it, ladies, gentlemen, and others. Oh yeah, mate, they won, but it's fine, cause I'm gonna beat them. oh, we do a little trolling here. Where's the bloodthirst? Where's the pride? Does this really feel like he's salty about losing to this guy and he thinks he can still win? No! It feels like he was told to talk a little trash, and if he said what he really felt, they'd take him round the back and recreate the end of Mice and Men to him. Think about the rabbits, Dardoc! I get that not everyone appreciates being hostile towards each other, and I'm sure that there's at least some people who have complaints if the crowd starts chanting,
Somebody's getting fired
during the match, but this shit's just fun, man. But obviously, it's not just your fans you're worried about upsetting. I'm sure MasterCard doesn't want their logo plastered next to anything remotely fun, so you gotta censor that shit and keep it off the broadcast. But why am I singling out Riot? There's two main reasons that I'm talking about Riot today, and that's because, one, these games are, for the most part, designed around fostering a competitive community, and two, they're working on a new fighting game. With every one of Riot's games, there is some sort of competitive esport attached to it. League of Legends has always been a competitive-focused game. It only took them 2 years to host their first Worlds with a prize pot of $100,000. Taking into account that Capcom Cup's prize pool is only twice that size is kind of crazy. In Valorant's first year on the market, it's already had a tournament with a $700,000 prize pool. What the fuck? That's not even the biggest one they're doing yet! I have no idea how to find the prize pool of the Champion Cup, but if Masters is $700,000, it's gonna be over $1 million prize pot. It has to be. Fucking Legends of Runeterra had a world championship with a $200,000 prize pot. Fucking Wild Rift is getting a world championship. The fucking mobile game? What? It shows that Riot is willing to double, triple, and quadruple down on the competitive scenes of these games. But where does all the money come from? Well, apart from the cash cow that is League of Legends Skin Store, they got sponsors. Like, a lot of sponsors. Like, Riot will pretty shamelessly plaster advertisements all over their match and use key moments in the game to push companies, and I really hate it. Like, Jesus, I really hate this. If there's anything you can take away from this video that's too fucking long, it's that I hate the fact that it's called a Prime Gaming Flawless. Like, what? No, that's stupid. Like, okay, watch this. Oh my god, that's the McDonald's 20 chicken nugget comeback! Like, it's shitty, right? Don't fucking plaster advertisements all over that. It was a sick play, and I don't want to have an advertisement shoved in my face while I'm hyped. And it's so fucking sneaky, because you know that shit's gonna get clipped and put on Twitter, and it all links back to the sponsors and advertisement, right? Dardoc isn't allowed to talk too much trash, because if he says something too offensive or dark, then guess who's gonna get pissed that their brand is next to them? Because the FGC came from nothing, they've kept that playful act about them, where people can just chat shit and speak from the heart. Whereas, with basically every Riot game that players can't get too riled up about, because if they say something wrong, they could piss off the stream sponsors and their team sponsors off, so they could lose their spot on the roster. I get this sounds like the rambling of a privileged white guy, but look, the FGC from the outside seems hella toxic, and while sometimes it can be, most interactions I've had with the community are wholesome, and it feels really like an accepting place to be. It isn't about the prize money or the fame or rarely the glory. It's about playing a game, shutting assholes up, and being yourself while doing it. So that just leaves one final question. What the hell is ProjectL going to do to all of this? ProjectL is the code name of one of Riot's currently developed games. We don't know much about the game apart from the fact that it's got League of Legends characters in it, the developers are the same ones who worked on Rising Thunder, and the Cannon brothers are helping with development. So, let's start with the good side of everything. I really trust these developers. I didn't get to play Rising Thunder while it was active, but thanks to a passionate fan community in a Discord server, I played in a tournament about a year ago, and I gotta say, shit was fun. I had no idea what I was doing, but I still had a good time. The controls felt tight, the characters were simple and had enough depth to distinguish themselves from each other, and even though the game doesn't use motion inputs, I felt the cooldown system was well implemented and didn't obstruct from decision making. The Cannon brothers are also amazing when it comes to fighting games, being veterans of the scene who helped Found Evo, they're also the creators of GGPO, aka the most utilized rollback infrastructure used today, and a literal godsend for any fighting game that uses it, making online matches not only bearable, but enjoyable. With their technical know-how and years of experience, I expect the game to play well both offline and online. Plus, the fact that the roster is going to be used of League of Legends characters means that the game will be popular right out the gate and make casual players and League kiddies want to check out their favorite champion's character model on something that isn't a flat plane of grass and has more than 3 polygons. As long as their favorite champion is in KDA or a hot anime boy or girl. Yeah, so even though I'm sure the game is going to be good and I have a lot of faith in the developers, this is Riot, a company that just can't stop themselves from copying their own homework and making the same character over and over again. If you want to know how bad it's getting, Nicky Boy made an amazing video about how Riot ruins their monster characters and just doesn't care. I'll leave a link to it in the video description. To sum it up though, for the past 2 years, Riot has basically just released sexy anime characters, with the only exception being a fucking cat and a goth yodel. No, the deer girl does not count. While you could definitely call me a hypocrite for saying I want more characters that just sexy anime people in my fighting games, given, you know, fighting game design, I do worry that Riot is going to limit the roster of characters that developers can work with based on how popular characters are. Like, okay, I don't play League of Legends anymore, but I fucking love Gnar, and I think his moveset would work really well in a fighting game. You'd like start the match at the back, throwing the boomerang to keep your distance from the enemy, and using your jump to control like space and setting up Oki situation. Then you'd like go at full range, and you could dive in at the enemy and like begin playing close up, like going for command grabs and bullying your opponent to the corner. He translates so well to a fighting game. It would have such a cool kit, but I'm not sure if you've noticed, he's not the most popular character. So bye, Gnar. See you never. Get the fucking KDA skins out. I get that Riot's goal is to make money, but I'm really worried that this is going to affect fighting games in a really negative way. If you look at how Riot has expanded out into other genres recently, their games are always trying to compete with one other big game. League of Legends has always had Dota to fight against. Valorant is taking on Counter-Strike. Legends of Runeterra is up against Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering. But these games are huge, like huge. Dota has the biggest prize pot out of any esport ever, with the Invitational bringing in millions of dollars for its prize pot every year. All without the needing of advertisements, by the way. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is the 2nd largest. Hearthstone is the 9th, and easily the biggest digital card game on the market. But what's Riot's competition in fighting games? Obviously there's the big 3 with Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken, but still, these aren't huge games like what they've been facing before. Melee's technically the biggest fighting game, and we all know Nintendo doesn't care about that, happily leaving its community to fend for itself. Riot is used to fighting for the spotlight, not sharing it, and I'm worried what that's gonna do to the entire scene. The FGC has been doing really well for itself recently. Guilty Gear Strive broke the concurrent player records for any fighting game on Steam. Tekken 7 and Street Fighter 5 have been the most successful entries in their franchises for years, and the community has grown and grown almost exponentially over the past few years. I love this community. The events we put on are the coolest, the people are the nicest, and the games are the best. I'm just worried that Riot is going to change all of that and turn it into another type of esport. I'm worried that Riot doesn't want to be part of the FGC. I'm worried they want to be the FGC. Alright, let's take the Adachi costume off for a second and be real. My worries are probably ridiculous, and I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but I thought somebody should talk about this. I'm not saying you shouldn't play ProjectL when it comes out. In fact, I think you should play it. As long as it doesn't have extremely intrusive antivirus software, obviously. Like, seriously, it installs itself in the kernel of your PC and it doesn't even work properly? The FGC was founded on competition, so we all know that competition can be healthy. Maybe it'll light a fire under the asses of the big 3 and make them actually give us a decent prize pot for people who aren't just coming first in Capcom Cup, but that doesn't mean that they're going to fight fair. Riot has money to burn at this point, and if they want, they could just dump a bunch of it into eradicating the competition. So, what do you do? Simple. Just support your scene as much as you can. Just because there's a new kid on the block whose parents have all the money in the world doesn't mean you have to stop playing your favorite games. If anything, this could work as a gateway for new players to find these games and get into the community, which is always a good thing. If the game is featured at open tournaments, then I'm sure it will only be beneficial to the scene by giving more eyes to the games. That, or Riot just makes the game locked to only their tournaments, which they wouldn't do, right? It's fine to be worried, but I'm sure things will be fine. Worst case scenario, we all go back to our local barcade and run our own tournaments again, where we can do what we love. And honestly, if that's the worst case, that doesn't sound too bad.